During the 15 years I was touring with my band Lunik, a lot of people approached me saying, Jaël, why don't you go solo? Why don't you do a solo record? And I always thought, like, no, why should I? I'm a loyal person, I'm going to stick to the guys. I have my band, why do I need a solo record? But of course an idea like that stays in the back of your mind. And when 2 years ago my band Lunik split up, it was the next logical step to start writing songs for a solo record. And of course I knew a lot of people from the business, so I gave some people a call, some producers, songwriters, if they wanted to help me out. So for 1 year I traveled around from studio to studio, meeting all sorts of different creative heads, writing songs, which was a very, very nice process, very inspiring, very liberating as well, because I knew that's the time now where I can do anything. I can redefine who I am in a musical way, which was, yeah, well, liberating. But also the downside of it was that I ended up having 30 songs, which sounded like 5 different records. And it came to the point where I had to decide, okay, which route am I going to take? So it was very important for me to find one producer that would produce the whole album.
Very often the solo artist brings a whole load of songs that come from all sorts of different angles and different places. And the main job is, in a lot of cases, just to sort of stitch that all together.
A friend of mine actually introduced me to Eliot, and I sent him some of my songs, writing an email and asking if he would be interested in working with me. And then we had a Skype meeting and made a date for meeting in the studio in London for 1 week and work on one song to find out whether we work together nicely. And after the first day of the studio, I just knew, okay, this is the guy, because I was just blown away. He was sitting in front at his desk doing things, and I was sitting in the back. I'm like, okay, I don't even have to say something. I'm just thinking it, and he's doing it already.
We spent a week in London together, working on one song, and it felt great for me. It felt really natural and very easy, and Jaël's very easy to work with. She's, you know, she has a lot of studio experience, and she knows what to do and what not to do in terms of working one-on-one with a producer. And I was really quite blown away as to how genuinely easy and natural and free-flowing it felt. So I was sold after that week. It was good.
Eliot and me started writing songs together a bit further down the line, when we already had quite a clear idea, concept of how the album sound's going to be. And that was really cool, because then we could just write songs that would match the album sound. Eliot pretty much ended up being my whole band. Besides being a great producer and songwriter, he's also a very, very talented musician. So we would sit in front at the desk and first record the guitar, and then the drums, and then the bass, and then the piano. And I would just sit in the back of the room, write my lyrics, and see the magic happening. And then, well, of course, also record my vocals and change melodies and blah, blah, blah. But yeah, it felt a bit like he pretty much did everything. It was just the two of us sitting in a room doing the whole record. A lot of people, when they listen to my melodies, they say they kind of hear the 80s in them a bit. And well, probably it makes sense, because that's the time I grew up in. And so I love harmonies, BBs, layering things, and the little sounds here and there. And then, well, later on, when I was a teenager and I started actually to sing in bands, that was the 90s, or the late 90s. And we listened to all sorts of trip hop, and I remember I always listened to that one record by Everything But the Girl, and they had chopped up vocals in there, and I really loved that. So when I went to the studio, I was like, Eliot, I want some chopped up vocals. It's also the first record of my band was released in 1998, and we had a lot of atmospheric, airy sounds in there. And so you could maybe also say that I kind of went a bit back to my roots with the solo record.
The defining factor in Jaël's music is Jaël's voice, almost certainly. And what we have chosen to do with that voice, I guess, is another way of describing Jaël's music in this instance, which is, I suppose we've started with a fairly electronic angle. And going back to how this all began, I don't think that was necessarily a decision that was thought about in any great sense other than just feeling it. And I seem to remember feeling that Jaël's voice worked well in a fairly electronic setting.
I make music for people. If I would do music for myself, I could just sit in the garage and play some lullabies to my own. So they're important. Their opinion is important. And it is really nice to feel right now that there are people out there who are eagerly awaiting my record. Of course, it is a very nice feeling. Still, it can be locking you down a bit as an artist because you can never please everybody. So during the process of songwriting, and also when I was in the studio during the production, I was trying very clearly to keep all that out, all these advices and expectations, and just do what I wanted to do. And 50% might love it and 50% might hate it, but I'm just gonna try and focus on the ones that love it.
The lasting experience for me on doing this album has been a very pleasant one. And it's for the reasons that I mentioned before, that Jaël she's very experienced and she knows what she likes and she knows what she wants, but she knows how to handle that in a very pleasant way and a very sensitive way to the creative process. And I just feel that it's actually been one of the easiest albums I've worked on. You know, sometimes you work on stuff and it feels like hard work, and this just felt very free-flowing, and I think we've got a really good result for that reason.
I love everything the way it is. I wouldn't change anything right now. Might change in half a year, but for now, I just think it's perfect. It's what I wanted to do, so that feels very, very good.